Okay, the purpose of this video is to serve as a companion to the help video that you watched for the Delta Math assignment on Pythagorean identities. This is a visual proof that explains in a beautiful picture how these identities work and where they come from. So let's take a moment before we come back to this. Let's take a moment to go through the identities that we already know. Let's talk about an identity as what it is. An identity is a number statement or a mathematical structure that is true for any number you put in. It doesn't matter. It's a true statement. Okay, it's always true. So we've already learned some trig identities. All right, the ratio identities are sine over cosine equals tangent and cosine over sine equals cotangent. We also learned the reciprocal identities, right? Cosecant is 1 over sine, sine is 1 over cosecant, cosine is 1 over secant, and secant is 1 over cosine, tangent is 1 over cotangent, and cotangent is 1 over tangent. So we already learned those. The last group that we need to learn about are these Pythagorean, well, the last that we're going to learn about in Algebra 2. Those of you who are going on to higher math will definitely learn more. Okay? So let's take a look at these Pythagorean identities, and this is where they come from. Let us recall that the square of the two sides of a right triangle has a special relationship with the hypotenuse. When you add these together, it equals the square of the hypotenuse. And when we were doing our triangles, we extrapolated that to include that x squared plus y squared equals 1 squared on the unit circle, right? And then we furthermore decided that this value was your cosine and this value was your sine, and that when you squared both of these and added them together, you get 1. 1 squared is just 1, right? It is what it is. So this is your first Pythagorean identity. The idea that cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x equals 1. That's where all of the other ones come from. And I want you to see this on this line. This is the same as this. It's equivalent. So this is your cosine, your x value. So cosine squared plus sine squared equals 1. This triangle, this little triangle right here. Okay, so there are a couple of things that we could do to algebraically manipulate this. One of them is we could divide everything through by cosine. See how we've divided everything by cosine? Well, let's see what we have. What's cosine divided by cosine? It's 1. What's sine squared divided by cosine squared? Well, sine over cosine, we just went over it again. It's tangent squared. Okay? If these two are squared, then this has to be squared. You learn about that in calculus also. So 1 plus tangent squared, what's 1 over cosine? It's secant. Now check this out, because this is really cool. See that triangle? This is a right triangle, right? Here's the right angle, right there. Here's the hypotenuse. 1 plus tangent squared of x equals the secant squared of x. So cool. And here's our last Pythagorean identity. So here's our original Pythagorean identity. I wanted to rewrite it. So let's take a look at the last one. Now on that one, another thing we could do to this is we can divide everything by sine. And let's see what happens when we do that. Well, we get cosine over sine, and what's that? That's cotangent, squared. They're both squared. So you get cotangent squared, right? We learned that from the ratio identity. Then you can also divide it by itself. Well, you just get 1, right? And 1 over sine, reciprocal identity, is cosecant squared, of course. So this is your last Pythagorean identity. Cotangent squared plus 1 equals cosecant squared. And let's take a look at how that works. Let's cover up this triangle and look at this big triangle instead. See the right angle right there in this corner? 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. So cool. Mathematics is so beautiful and so cool. See you in the next video.